I have just 72 hours to take my almost stock N70 and get it ready for a full drive 24/7 filming trip. I have so much to do and not a lot of time. So 72 hours starting now. Let's go.
We bought what we thought is the best used dual cab ute in Australia, and over the last many months we've been building it into the ultimate high horsepower tourer. We took it for driving stock and it struggled. Plus, last episode our mates at Performance Tourers threw the works at the engine, so it's reliably making up to 250 horsepower on a selectable tune. But now we're 72 hours from taking it on its first full drive 24/7 filming trip.
Of course, with every build, I've made a list of things I need to finish off, and in true Jocko fashion, this list is probably gonna grow before I start crossing things off, but we'll get there anyway. So over the next 72 hours, I've gotta finish everything off. I've got some tires and wheels to put on. They're at the tire shop getting fitted as we speak, but as for this list, I've got some scrub bars and side steps, diff breathers, 12 volt, storage. Oh, there's a lot to be done and not much time. I need to stop talking and get on the tools.
Straight up, one of the most essential mods we want to hook into is more bar work to protect the panels and of course, the door sills. Once you damage them, they're really hard to repair. We've gone with AFS side steps and rails because they're an easy DIY fit and have a nice big step to get up to the roof rack, which will be loaded with touring gear. An hour or so in the shed, I've installed the side steps ready for the brush bars. Now the bar work is all on, we can crack on with the 12 volt setup, which I've called in the big guns for. Mario is a licensed auto electrician, so I thought it may be best to leave the high voltage work for him to install in the cab and the canopy.
You might notice there's a few bits missing in the interior, and the reason for that is I decided to strip out the cab and we've put in some vinyl flooring. There's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, the original carpet was a little bit rough. The person who owned the vehicle before me was a painter and had seen better days. But while we were at it, we also sound deadened the floor and the doors as well with some Dynamat and some Dynaliner over the top of that, which will really help on some of those longer trips, keeping the cab nice and quiet, and will also help to keep heat out from coming to the floor and the firewall and stuff like that. The vinyl flooring also comes with some under vinyl insulation, nice and thick too, so that should really help. But the main reason I decided to go for vinyl was I've got it in the Pony and it works really well, and I also saw when Sean built Sooty, he chucked vinyl in his vehicle because obviously Sooty does some hard yards in the mud and it's way easier to clean. So I thought it'd be a good idea for the N70, and I reckon it's come up an absolute treat. I just got to finish putting the trim back together. Should be ready to take the new vinyl flooring for a test run in the mud. Oh, I hate mud.
Righto, that's all done. Now I can focus on getting the rear drawer setup completed.
Now this had another set of drawers in here originally that were a little bit tired. They've been used by the previous owner, so I thought I'd chuck some new ones in, and I spent a bit of time coming up with a rough layout. Now none of this is bolted in yet, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of what I'm thinking. So first up, I've got this DriveTech pull-out kitchen here. It's got a table and slide on it, I'll show you in a second, but because this is shorter, it means that I can put a full-size tread box in the back here, which I can still pull out. So heavier items like tools and spares or other bits and pieces, spare hubs and whatnot, can go in this box because it's forward and it's sitting over the rear axle, which is what you want. And then in the back here, what I'm thinking is this space you'll notice is empty. In there is going to go the battery box and the inverter, all tucked away in the side there. I've got this little 12 volt outlet that's going to sit there just for easy access. And then I've got a long storage drawer here. As I mentioned, none of this is bolted in yet, but the reason I've decided to lay it out this way is because the passenger side of the vehicle is going to be the camping side, and I didn't want to have this slide out table. It's still got the protective film on it. So that's got where my cooker will be and a little prep kitchen. So you can obviously access it from this side, but if this drawer is over there, it means each time you have to come to it, if it's out, you have to come around. You get what I mean? So by putting it this way, it means that I can walk from my camping side, you come in here, do what I need to do, and away I go. And then behind this storage drawer, I've still got space to fit that little 20-litre jerry I made for the Pony with the hose on the end of it. That fits perfectly behind this drawer. So I have 20 litres of water. Again, that's 20 kilos up right at the headboard, out of the way. And then on this side, this wing, I'm going to build a wing for it, and then Mario's going to put in a GPO, so a power outlet for the inverter for easy access. I'm also going to have the switch panel for turning on all the lights and stuff in the canopy, and maybe a compressor outlet or something like that, but we can modify that stuff later. And then the rest of the wing is going to be pretty much left open for any extra bits of storage.
it's worth the time doing something once and doing it right. Which is why Mario has opted to run any bit of cabling he has through existing cab and tub structures to reduce the number of cables being exposed. Once all of the cabling has been run, Mario started installing all of the DriveTech 4x4 gear involved with our 12 volt setup. I went a bit harder with the 12 volt setup this time, and I've gone for a 2000 watt inverter, which will be perfect for charging everything from tool batteries through to camera gear and a few more luxuries out in the bush. I've never had a big 12 volt power touring setup before, so I'm excited to put this one to the test. Pair that with the 110 watt solar panel on top and it'll be sweet for multi-day remote trips.
Another job on the list, I'm installing a secondary fuel filter and a catch can. I've got this bracket for the N70, but it's designed to fit with the factory airbox. So it means the catch can isn't gonna fit on the bracket. That's okay though, we can still use the bracket to mount the fuel filter. And then I'm gonna put the catch can over the other side of the vehicle where there's a free space over there. But the fuel filter will mount nicely there.
Ryco make it super easy when it comes to installing your secondary fuel filter and catch can. A secondary fuel filter is essential, particularly on a modern common rail, and they supply everything you need in this kit, with detailed instructions for the install. Alright, we're getting through it. Mario's just finishing up on the 12 volt, and I've mounted the tread recovery tracks and storage boxes on the roof, which are perfect for extra dry lockable storage.
Next up on the list, I'm going to be installing one of these EVC throttle controllers from Ultimate 9. I've never actually had a full drive that uses one of these before, so I'm keen to install it, and it's going to work really well with that tune. Being in auto, I'll be able to dampen the throttle down or sharpen it up depending on what I'm driving. How good's that?
I've also installed the Cap Industries fire extinguisher bracket under the passenger seat. A handy tip when installing these, if you install the bracket with the clip facing down, they almost spring open when you go to use them. This has been by far the fastest way to get my extinguishers out in the past. Ask me how I know.
Next, I want to do probably one of the most important mods to make to your four-wheel drive as well, and that's diff breathers. All vehicles will have a breather on the diff. Why do you need one? Well, as that diff heats up and cools down, there's going to be a build-up in pressure inside there. That pressure needs to escape. If you don't have a place for it to escape, the next area that pressure is going to push on is the seals, so axle seals and diff seals and things like that, which will cause it to leak. So we need to have a breather in there to allow air to move in and out as the diff heats up and cools down. From factory, a lot of them will be mounted down low on the diff. The problem for us four-wheel drivers is as soon as you go through water, that creates another area where it could enter, and in some extreme cases, it can ruin the internals, not just of your diffs, but of your gearbox and transfer case as well. Here is an example of the diff breather off the back of the Hilux. Now this is bolted directly on top of the diff. So what you could do if you're on a budget is literally just grab this fitting off the diff, extend it up and mount it up somewhere high. That's exactly what I've done in the Pony. In the N70's case, I'm gonna put new fittings on. We're gonna make them a little bit further up to here. It's not much of a difference, but from here to here, obviously it's a bit more protected and out of the way, and we know it's nice and safe. I'm also gonna be taking the breather for the transmission, which is on top of the bell housing, and running it up to here as well. That one is super important. Make sure you don't miss out on your transmission and transfer case. And for the rear diff, I'm gonna do something different on where I mount it. The general thinking is you wanna mount the breather as high as possible, which is correct, and a lot of people run their rear diff breather into the engine bay. You definitely still can do that, but I personally like to run them straight up into the cab or into the tub in this case. I've done it on the Pony, my SAS Lux, pretty much every vehicle I build, I don't run the rear diff breather to the front. And my theory is this, because there needs to be a change in pressure in here, if you increase the distance the air has to travel, obviously you need to increase the amount of pressure before it's released, if that makes sense. Think of it like this. Imagine if you had a really long straw and you blow through the straw, or you have a real short straw and you blow through it. It's much easier to blow through the shorter straw. So my theory is, by mounting the diff breather at the rear directly up above it, it has a shorter distance for that air to travel. Therefore, it's a bit easier on everything when there needs to be a pressure change. You can do it the other way. There are kits that mount them directly in the engine bay for everything, but I personally like to do it this way. For now, I'm actually going to be running the breather hose over here to where my locker line is, So I'm also installing a rear air locker in the back of this. It's important to consider when you are mounting lines in the back like this, you account for enough droop in the suspension. So obviously we're at pretty much full droop on the hoist here, but that's directly down. Obviously when it flexes, it's gonna pull more on this side. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna run the breather over here. I'm gonna leave a little bit of a loop there just to allow for a bit of movement in the rear axle so it doesn't pull tight on the lines. And then I'm gonna run them into the back of the tub.
Now we're onto the underbody protection. It's always good to clean your underbody before doing any work on it. It saves you from any loose dirt that may be there, and it makes it a whole lot easier to work on. I've also decided to pre-lubricate the threads to not only clean them out, but for an easy install with the bolts. Don't be afraid to ask a mate for a hand when you need it. Installs go a whole lot smoother when there's more hands. Bash plates are such cheap insurance. It really pays to have a quality set protecting the underside of your four-wheel drive. But no time to admire them now. The clock's ticking and we've still got a handful of jobs to complete. Mario's done an awesome job wiring everything up for us. Now all we've got to do is properly secure the drawers. You've probably noticed the clear view mirrors I have on the N70. These have been fantastic, not only for towing, but they've really surprised me on the tracks on how tough they are.
Oh man, we are running out of time. I'm leaving for the high country tomorrow. Leave it last minute to put the wheels and tires on, but the good news is they are here. Check these out. These are a 285/75/16 and I've got some CSA bullet wheels. I reckon they look pretty schmick. The reason I'm a bit behind is because over there, I don't know if you can see it, our new project is underneath a car cover. Not going to show you what it is just yet. You have to keep an eye on the episode. For now though, we're going to get these cheese cutters off, get the new rubber on, pack, then we can hit the road. Let's go.
Wheels and tyres are on, which means there's only one thing to do. Hit the road and take the old girl on a trip. We finally made it. The big N70 is on her first trip, and so far in the high country, it's been going okay. We've got a big couple of weeks ahead of us though, and it was a big drive down here. She loved every bit of it. This part right now is my favorite part of a build, where you've done all the hard work and you get to get out in the bush and test it, and you can change little things that you like or that you didn't like. It's something that the only real way to do it properly is to get your four-wheel drive out there and use it. As for the big N70, I've now got a reliable, big horsepower tourer with a mint setup in the back. And the only thing for it is to get onto some tough high country tracks and properly put it through its paces. You guys are gonna see plenty more of this vehicle over the next couple of episodes on YouTube. Right now, it's time to hit some tracks. How good? Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.